In today's episode, we discuss the multi-launch coaster that enthusiasts can't seem to decide whether it's family-friendly or ferocious. Welcome to Airtime Traveler. How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the Roller Coaster History Podcast. You are listening to Airtime Traveler. My name is Nathan Grace, and as always, I'm joined by my wife and lovely co-host.
Hey, I'm Haley Grace.
And welcome to Busch Gardens month on the Roller Coaster History Podcast. If you, I was like, you're excited. What was like? It was very small, just like whoop,
whoop, whoop, whoop. That means I am starting to get anxious about tomorrow. We leave on a plane. We're flying with 2 children for the first time, so I think we're both a little anxious for tomorrow and trying to pack and make sure we have everything. You should see our kitchen counter. You haven't even seen it yet. It's covered in snacks because I'm like,
oh yeah, I saw.
Yeah, just to feed them snacks, just throw it to them.
Just snacks all day,
all the time.
Fortunately, our flights aren't super long. Like we're not backtracking and then like another long flight. Like we're kind of flying relatively short. Like I think the first flight is like two hours and the next one's only an hour, so
shouldn't, at least somewhat good.
Yeah, shouldn't be too bad, hopefully. So we're flying tomorrow because we're going to Busch Gardens Williamsburg for the very first time, so that is very exciting. And so that kind of spurred on this idea of having a whole month of the podcast dedicated to Busch Gardens. So if you don't know, I went to Busch Gardens Tampa for the first time back in May, and we haven't done the trip report for that yet, mostly because I knew that this was coming. So we're going to do our first Busch Gardens Tampa episode today. Next Thursday will be our
spoiler alert.
Well, they knew this. We've talked about this on the podcast the past few months. And I also posted something on social media today, kind of laying out what the schedule is for the next month. But okay. So Busch Gardens Tampa episode today, Busch Gardens Tampa trip report next Thursday, and then we'll jump over to Williamsburg and do an episode for that the following Thursday, and then the Busch Gardens Williamsburg trip report after that. And then, because there's 5 Thursdays this month, the last Thursday of the month is actually on Halloween. So on Halloween, we will have our annual Halloween special, which won't be Busch Gardens, but it is our Halloween special is a fun episode. We always talk.
It's like my favorite one.
We talk about a defunct coaster for our Halloween special, which I find those. I've said this before. I think those stories are interesting because there's a reason coasters don't exist anymore. There's usually an interesting story behind that. So
that's true.
There you go. With that said, I don't think there's any coaster news to talk about. So there's Silver Dollar City's announcement that's coming up.
Oh, no one knows. It's so annoying.
Well, and my initial gut reaction was that it was a resort, and the more they keep talking about it, the more I'm like, this feels bigger than just a resort.
Yeah,
I'm like really curious.
Itching to know.
So.
And it's like 2 days after we get back, so we're gonna be gone the entire trip and be keep seeing all these teasers and be like, what the heck?
There's nothing we can do about it, whether we're here or not.
I know.
So
it's just like, just tell us already.
So I am excited to see what that is. So that'll probably be the last major announcement this year for amusement parks. Generally, parks make announcements in the late summer, early fall, so we're kind of getting towards the end of that, which also, with how late this announcement is, makes me think it might be a 2026 edition for Silver Dollar City, because it'd be pretty hard especially if it's as big as it seems to be based on the teasers and all the rumors. If it's that big of an announcement, it would make sense that they're announcing it for to give them a year and a half to work on it, because for them to get it ready in 4 months
That's a lot.
From the
That's
5
ask.
months after the announcement. Like even Fire in the Hole one ride was well under construction, and they announced that in, I think, late August last year for a March opening. So yeah, it's pretty late for parks to be announcing things at this point if they're planning on opening them in early 2025. So
yeah.
Anyway, well, let's go ahead and jump into our topic for today. So, like I said, we're doing Busch Gardens Tampa today, which this is a little backwards from how we've usually done it. Usually we always try to do our trip report first before we do the first episode for a park. So this is a little backwards. And also Haley didn't get to come with me to Busch Gardens Tampa because she was at her first love, Walt Disney World. So I will have to do a little bit of explaining for Haley today just because she's not familiar with this at all because we haven't done the trip report and she wasn't there. So, we'll make it work.
It'll be fine.
So,
I mean, it's the same thing with like Knott's Berry whenever you went. So.
That's true. So, and so, I mean, a lot of the people listening to the podcast probably haven't heard of this ride, but haven't been on this ride or been to the park yet. And so we try to keep it high level enough that people can still enjoy the podcast, even if they are familiar with the coaster or not. So Hopefully that's the same for you. Hopefully you're not too bored tonight. So
bored? I'm never bored.
Oh, well, I appreciate that.
Not true, but
Hey,
it's true. That's it's true that sometimes I do get bored, only because I'm too tired to stay awake. But.
Wow. Heard it here first. Even Haley gets bored on the podcast. How many of you must be getting bored just listening? You don't even get to look at the pictures like she does.
Okay. You try watching both the kids.
There's a difference between bored and tired. I think there's a clear distinction between the two.
Super tired to the point that I have a hard time paying attention.
I think that's different than just boredom for boredom's sake. So, well, today we're talking about Cheetah Hunt at Busch Gardens Tampa. So this is a launch coaster that is at Busch Gardens Tampa. It's a triple launch coaster. It's the same make and model as Maverick at Cedar Point.
Oh, okay.
But not as fast, not as tall. Well, no, it's actually taller, but it's not as fast and doesn't have as many inversions. We'll get into it later, but that at least gives you a high level understanding of what kind of coaster we're talking about here.
Maverick, so that's cool. Okay.
Opened in 2011, which was 4 years after Maverick opened, so it's more recent than Maverick. Approximately $20 million. That's just estimates from industry professionals. So 4,429 feet long, 102 feet tall, top speed of 60 miles per hour. Average 2024 wait time is 40 minutes.
Oof.
Yeah, that's
long. Did you wait that long?
No, because I was only there one day. I bought the quick queue. Because I forgot that you bought the quick queue. Because I was like, I'm only here one day. It was a Saturday, so I knew it was going to be absolutely insane on a Saturday. It was in May, so it's not as crazy as like if I'd gone in the summer. Right. But it was like there were 90-minute waits on some rides that day. So this ride included. So Cheetah Hunt and Iron Gwazi both got up to 90 minutes while I was there, and some other rides got up to 60. So it definitely was quite busy when I was there. I only got to ride every coaster I rode that day. I only got to ride one time. So it was good that I had the quick queue, because if I didn't, I don't think I would have gotten all the coasters in that day. So, But yeah, Cheetah Hunt is notorious for having long waits. And in fact, the customer reviews were just flooded with complaints of long waits.
Of course they were.
And like, it's the same thing. And because it's Intamin, Intamins tend to break down more than other coaster manufacturers. And so all these complaints were like, I waited in line 2.5 hours and then it broke down and I had to get out of line and didn't get to ride it that day. Like, there's just all the bad reviews were just all people complaining about that.
Actually, like I don't know.
I get that.
I probably would complain about it,
Yeah, I get that. And that is a thing that's really difficult, especially if you're not, like, familiar with roller coasters. Like, if you're not an enthusiast that knows the manufacturers and everything. Like, for me, I understand that. So I know that coasters that are built by Intamin tend to have more issues, and so when they break down, I'm not surprised. But yeah, if you wait in line, if you don't know that, you just think roller coasters are roller coasters, and you wait in line for 3 hours and then don't get to ride a ride like that. Yeah. That's infuriating. I get that. Yeah. So
general public definitely thinks that. So
definitely. So yeah, this ride does have really long lines. So the capacity isn't fantastic, and it's really popular. So yeah. Those two things equal long lines for sure. So, the Coaster Bot rankings, it ranks at 87 in the country. Ranks below coasters such as Matugani at Lost Island, Full Throttle at Six Flags Magic Mountain, and Mr. Freeze at Six Flags Over Texas. It ranks above coasters such as Powder Keg at Silver Dollar City, Big Bear Mountain at Dollywood, and Verbolten at Busch Gardens Williamsburg.
So it's better than Big Bear. That's cool.
Yeah,
okay.
I rank Powder Keg and Big Bear Mountain ahead of Cheetah Hunt in my rankings, and
I'm curious why.
Yeah, we'll get to that later. I won't go into a lot of depth on my feelings on Cheetah Hunt. If you want to hear my full review of Cheetah Hunt, you can tune into our trip report next week. But I'll give just a couple high level thoughts. And then Verbolten, we'll get to ride Verbolten in a couple days here, and we'll see how I feel about Verbolten versus Cheetah Hunt. But
is Verbolten the same layout as Cheetah?
No, it is another multi-launch coaster at Busch Gardens though, but it's manufactured by a different company, so there are some differences there.
Okay.
At Busch Gardens Tampa, it actually ranks 5th. Which is, I mean, that just shows you how stacked their lineup is. That, they essentially have 5 coasters in the top 100, which not a lot of parks can say that. So Iron Gwazi is number 1, followed by Montu at 2, Kumba and Shikra at 3 and 4. Cheetah Hunt then comes in at 5. Tigress comes in at 6. Scorpion, rest in peace, was at 7 until it closed down 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago? 3 weeks ago? Yeah. Very sad. I like Scorpion a lot. And then Cobra's Curse at 8 and Air Grover at 9. Yeah, Air Grover. I sent a picture of when I rode Air Grover. I was just on it by myself with a bunch of little kids. I had to get the credit. It's not like because there's other parents in line and other parents riding it, but it's just funny that like they're getting in with their kids and I'm just by myself, which is very strange.
No, it's extremely strange.
I guarantee there are multiple people a day that are doing that are picking up that coaster credit just the same way that I do. So I am not alone. There are thousands of enthusiasts, probably tens of thousands of enthusiasts in this country that get on all these kiddie coasters just for the credit. So
okay.
Yeah, I am not alone, definitely. So I also got a really good view of the Andy Grammer. Is that his name? That's the right name, right? Yeah. Andy Grammer because the queue for Air Grover is right behind the stage, so I got like a really good view of the Andy Grammer concert that was going on at the same time. So it was also exceedingly loud there. They need to figure that out because like is so loud. The concert is like the speakers are facing the other way, but it's still so loud because you're right next to the speakers while you're in this queue that you're just like
on the kids
exactly coaster. This is really loud for to be right next to the little Sesame Street section in their park. So
good old Sesame Street. Is there a Sesame Street in the Busch Gardens that we're going to?
It's a good question.
Because I packed Sesame Street shirts.
My gut reaction was to say yes, but now that I'm thinking about it, I don't think they do. If they do, they don't. Because I don't check all the different rides and everything. I'm mostly just concerned with the coasters, and I know they don't have a Sesame Street themed roller coaster there, so I don't know if there's a Sesame Place or Sesame Street section at that park. They have the license to it. Like, it's not like they couldn't put something there, but I don't know if they have or not.
There's the Sesame Street World or whatever that's not too far.
It's not too far, but it is still probably, I don't know, 3 or 4 hours away from there. Anyway. Review of the name. What do you think of the name? I'm curious what your thought is. Just first thought of what the name Cheetah Hunt for a coaster.
I think of hunting cheetahs. Instead of...
Okay, thank you. So I'm not the only one that feels that way. When I hear Cheetah Hunt, yes, there's 2 ways that phrase can go, right? You can think of a cheetah on the hunt, or you can think of hunting cheetahs, which is way different and way more horrible. It is the complete opposite message that Busch Gardens is trying to get across. Like, you know, they have these animals there and are preaching conservation efforts and all that. And so, to me, this name is... I do not like this name. I think it's a poor choice of words. I get what they're going for, but it just... I don't like it. It's interesting because there are other cheetah-themed attractions. One of the more popular ones is a launched water slide at Holiday World that's called Cheetah Chase, which I actually think is a much better name. The problem is Busch Gardens Tampa had a wild mouse at the park that was called Cheetah Chase before this opened. So that would have been confusing for like people to go ride a coaster that had the same name as a coaster they tore down, but it was completely different than the old one that they tore. Like, it's just complicated. So we'll talk about, there was another name that was in the running before they decided on Cheetah Hunt that I think is much better. But the logo is also, I don't know, it's fine. Like, it's not boring per se. Like, I like the font. And, like, you know, it gives off, like, a wild animal type of feel. And so I don't think it is a bad logo. I am a little confused why some of the letters are lowercase and others are uppercase. Like, look at this. Like, both of the H's are lowercase, but then the E's and the A are uppercase. And then the T is uppercase, but it's also bigger than the other one. Like...
You're very picky tonight.
I don't know. I was just looking at the logo and just thinking critically about it, and I'm like, that's very weird. But I don't know. That's me just really looking into the logo. Like when you look at the sign, like above the entrance to the queue, like it looks fine. It's not a bad logo. It's just when we've been coming off of episodes like what was the one that we did? Twisted Timbers we did 2 weeks ago. Yeah, that's such a great logo, and it's like this one is just not as good as that. So now, what I will compliment the ride on is I love the paint scheme and I love the trains. So here's a picture of the paint scheme. I love the green and the yellow work very nicely together.
Babe, I went and looked. I don't.
Oh, and you're looking at if they have the Sesame Street stuff there.
They don't.
I was gonna say I feel like they don't. When you asked that, I thought about it. I was like,
what kind of kid rides they have? They don't have a lot.
Yeah, not like Busch Gardens Tampa or SeaWorld did. So I'm sure there's some stuff there, but you know.
Well, wait a second. That's weird. So it has. Now I just looked up the kids section. It has a carousel. It has a Sesame Street Forest of Fun.
Oh, okay. So there's some Sesame Street stuff there.
Land of Dragons, which is like a Dumbo kind of ride.
I should just realize as we're sitting here, I'm an idiot. There's 100% a Sesame Street roller coaster at the park. That just totally slipped my mind.
We had to take a quick pause, and I was feeding our daughter to put her back to sleep, and I looked it up, and I'm like, there is totally a Sesame
there is.
Street,
There's a Grover themed roller coaster at Busch Gardens Williamsburg too.
Goose.
I know. I forgot.
You're such a silly belly.
I forgot about a roller coaster. Shame on me.
How dare you?
Shame on me.
For shame.
For shame.
Oh gosh. We're losing it.
Oh, okay. On to the trains, because these are... I was complaining about the logo and the name. These are some of my favorite trains on any roller coaster, though. These look great. So whoever, is in the creative department over at Busch Gardens that helped design these trains definitely needs a raise, because these look fantastic. So
yeah, the front of the train looks really good.
Very good looking train. And the trains do kind of help push the idea along that you are a cheetah on the hunt rather than hunting cheetahs. So I do appreciate that the trains try to push that narrative the way it's supposed to go. So yeah. Here's the park's description of the ride. A celebration of the fastest land animal, Tampa Bay's longest roller coaster quickly raced and weaved its way onto the list of coaster favorites. This triple launch roller coaster carries riders high above the park, then races down along the ground through a rocky gorge. At a length of 4,400 feet, Cheetah Hunt is the park's longest thrill ride attraction.
Do you notice that your voice gets quieter too when you do that?
Well, that's because I have to get closer to the microphone, because I'm trying to get deeper, but I can't it's really, I'm just making my voice more grovelly. I'm not actually getting deeper, and so okay. I don't have a Chris Hemsworth voice that I can just
gotta love
just turn on my Chris Hemsworth. Oh, customer reviews. Like I said, there was a lot of people complaining about the length of the line. We're not going to worry about those reviews. It does have 4.8 out of 5 on Google reviews, though, so not too shabby. Here's a 5-star review. One of the best rides in the park. A park classic for sure. The exhilarating start definitely keeps you on your toes with the fast pace on the track that continues to make you go. A constant speed is a thrill. My favorite part's when the ride goes up the hill, slowly makes the turns at the top, and then suddenly drops with more fast pace. I definitely recommend anyone try this ride. It's definitely worth the wait. Well, there you go. Someone's willing to wait in line for a couple hours for this one. So.
Oh wow, a couple hours even.
Oh, yeah. It gets up there for sure. Here's 5 stars again. Waited 25 minutes on a Wednesday at 10 a.m. First ride, and 5-year-old loved it.
5-year-old?
5-year-old.
Oh, that's a thrill seeker.
It goes 60 miles an hour.
He's a coaster enthusiast in the making.
It says definitely not too scary for little ones. I would say definitely depends on the kid.
Yeah, our kid would not. No.
So definitely take that with a grain of salt.
Definitely. I mean, our kid won't get on Grover.
Yeah. Our kid's definitely at the low end of the thrill level seeking stage. So
I feel like our daughter's gonna be way more thrill seeking.
That's how me and my sister were. So that would check out if that's what happens. So
yep. I see it happening now.
That could very well be the case. Here's another 5-star. Cheetah Hunt is very thrilling yet very tame. What?
These reviews. What the heck?
Now, when we get into it, I will say that there's a reason that people have that feeling about the ride, but just phrasing it as very thrilling yet very tame, that doesn't make any sense.
Kind of two-faced.
Great for everyone in your family, it says. Let's throw Grandma and Grandpa on Cheetah Hunt. Let's go. Here's some bad reviews. 1 star.
Can you imagine Ray?
My grandpa on a roller coaster. He would not make it to the end of a ride. Even if we put him on fire in the hole. Oh, man.
Let's be honest. His spirit is like Red Flanders.
That is accurate.
Flanders in another life.
That is accurate. So. If he grew up in Arkansas instead of in Idaho,
that would be Red Flanders.
There very well could be.
Yep. It's hilarious.
Oh, 1 star. If you don't have Quick Queue, forget about this ride. They load around 30 trains with people who paid for Quick Queue before regular customers. I think that's a bit of an exaggeration. It's a scam to get you to pay. The other rides around the park aren't the same at all. I'm not going to read this one because it's really long.
Wow.
But 1 star. And basically, this person's complaining because, quote, on my last visit, my cell phone fell off while I was riding the Cheetah Hunt attraction. And my Apple Watch, I searched for it until I reached the point where I couldn't pass because it was fenced and said it was just for authorized personnel. So then he goes and finds an employee, and the employee is like, I can't take you back there. And then he says the employee didn't write anything down, and the employee said he needs to file it online. Basically, he's this big old spiel of, he couldn't get his phone. And I'm like, it's your fault that the phone fell out of your pocket on Cheetah. And they tell you not to have a cell phone on the ride.
It's every single attraction.
I mean, that's the thing.
It's really sad. It sucks. Like, I'm not gonna lie. That sucks. I'm sorry that happened to you.
If you are a non-coaster enthusiast and you're listening to this,
yes, please
understand that it says on every roller coaster, whether it's a big roller coaster or not, I guarantee you that 95+% of coasters say on the ride, the sign that's outside the ride almost any ride, but especially roller coasters.
When we went to Silver Dollar City on Friday, like, even the kid rides, they're like, put your phone away. You don't want your phone out.
Exactly. If you read the sign outside the ride that has like all the rules and restrictions and stuff, it's going to say on there, no loose items. That includes your cell phone. So and the park claims no responsibility for that because they told you don't have your phone out. So if you lose your phone on a ride like Cheetah Hunt, that's your fault. That's all I'm going to say. So 1 star, got kicked out and escorted out by 3 popos and 7 security guards.
Whoa!
Again, I think that's your fault, and I also want to know the rest of the story.
I'm like, can I hear all the juicy details on this?
Wow, that is something else.
Spill the tea on that one, man.
Okay, can you help me decipher this one? 1 star, I got hit by a bird's daughter. What is happening right now? I am so confused by all of these reviews. Are you people in Tampa okay? Is everything okay there? Like,
really not.
Got hit by a bird's daughter. What are we talking about? And finally, 1 star. This ride just hurt like bad. Pain in my legs when we do the looped. No recommendo for anyone with big muscles like me. Yes, I love it. If you have big muscles, you might not like Cheetah Hunt.
I don't know. I like the loop section. I'm gonna call them loops from now on.
Looped. That is amazing.
Great description.
Those are some great customer reviews today. Those are some good ones.
Looped.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm totally calling all the rides looped from now on.
And the do is also with 2 O's. Do the looped. Oh man, that is fantastic. Well, those are our customer reviews of Cheetah Hunt at Busch Gardens Tampa. They're so funny. I like starting the episodes with something really funny because then we kind of get into like the more nitty gritty and the serious stuff. Sometimes there's funny stuff in the body of the episode too, but it's just fun to start off with some really funny stuff at the beginning.
Something else, that's for sure.
Well, let's hop into our time machine. Let's pull down on the lap bar and keep your hands, arms, feet, and legs inside the time machine at all time. Don't drop your cell phone. Won't be able to recover it for you. And
or time traveling, baby.
I know.
There ain't no recovering that bad boy.
Stuck back in the 3rd century in Rome or something. So.
Oh, jeez.
My history is so bad that reference probably didn't make any sense.
Probably
not. I just threw a location and a random date out there. But there you
go.
So, there you go. Someone's going to be like, Rome?
What are you talking about?
We're here to talk about roller coaster history, not world history, okay? Give me a break.
Oh, jeez.
Let's go back.
Fail.
I know. Let's go back to 1966. right, 1966. We're in September of 1966. And Busch Gardens Tampa opens a ride that was... I've heard differing, some conflicting information on what the actual name of the ride was when it opened. But from what I can tell based on articles that I read, I think the name when it opened was the Skyway Safari. Now, this was one of the park's earliest attractions because the brewery and the gardens originally opened in 1959, just 7 years prior to where we're at in 66. So that's essentially how Busch Gardens gets started, because this park opened before the one in Williamsburg did. So this one was basically started in 59. The one in Williamsburg didn't open until 75. And so it was essentially they wanted to build a brewery in Tampa Bay, Anheuser-Busch did. And so they built it there, but they also had like some really nice gardens and a few animal exhibits. And basically people could come and tour the gardens and the animals and also tour the brewery. And so that's kind of how it became an attraction for people to come and visit. And then over time they added more rides and more animals. And then
really interesting.
It is really interesting to me how different park histories are. Like some start off as a park.
It's very different.
And others, like Silver Dollar City, started off as a cave attraction and then became an amusement park. Knott's Berry Farm started off as a restaurant and then became an amusement. It's fascinating to see the whole spectrum of how some of these parks come to be. But because my guess is Busch Gardens really wasn't looking to get into the amusement industry. That's how Hershey Park happened, right?
Yeah.
Like Hershey was just building like a recreational facility for their employees. And then it got so popular that they were like, why don't we just start selling tickets for this? And then now they have one of the biggest privately owned amusement parks in the country. Like it just kind of happened that way. So it's just kind of funny. But so, they started getting more and more people coming to the brewery and the gardens, and so they decided to start expanding it. And the first two major expansions were the African Veldt, I think that's how you say it, and the American Plains. I guess Veldt is another name for the grasslands in southern Africa. So I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right or not, but the African Veldt section of the park was also set to include a unique monorail system that would allow guests to view the animals while on the ride. So kind of like a Kilimanjaro safari, but it's like on a monorail instead. It's kind of interesting. So now, while most monorails sit on the tracks like they do at Disney World or Disneyland, this was actually a really rare hanging variety of monorail. So I got some pictures here.
Oh, cool.
Isn't that interesting? I really wish there were more like this, because this is really cool. Like, I knew these existed because they're in Roller Coaster Tycoon.
Oh, okay.
But I've never actually seen one in real life, and so here's some what more pictures that we got here. This is like in the parking lot, but let's see, so you can see here as it's going by the Rhino exhibit and then the giraffe exhibit. So there were times that the monorail was like 30 feet above the ground, and then there's times where it was only basically just right above the ground. But
that's cool.
So the manufacturer was Aero Development, which was basically an early precursor to aerodynamics. It was going to be a mile long and cost $1 million, which is almost $10 million in today's money. So that's a pretty significant ride. And this is the first ride that Busch Gardens would be building. And so that's a pretty significant first attraction, right?
Yeah, for sure.
It was originally supposed to open in 1965. They would have a few construction delays that pushed the opening back to early 66, then June of 1966, and then finally September 13th, 1966 is when they open what I think was called Skyway Safari. I also heard it was called Veldt Monorail, so I don't know. One of those two names. The Veldt Monorail.
It sounds definitely more like a nickname than the actual.
Yeah, Skyway Safari is a much better name for sure. So, the ride was tested for several days before it was opening. to one, make sure it was operating properly, obviously, but also they did it to help the animals become accustomed to like the vehicles passing by.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it was smart. You don't want the animals to like freak out that you have guests on the ride. So
yeah.
I
would, that's how I would react. What the heck is that?
What is that?
What is that?
The finished ride would actually be around 7,000 feet in length. So I don't know where the extra 1,800 feet came from, but it made it the second longest monorail in the world when it opened. Wow. It was any guess which one was the longest in 1966?
Disney World or Disneyland?
It was Disney, yeah, because Disney World wasn't open yet. It was Disneyland's had the longest monorail at the time at 12,300 feet. It's crazy. So the cars featured onboard audio, which is very impressive for 1966. Yeah. And so it kind of gave, like I said, kind of like a Kilimanjaro safari type of deal where, like, I don't think it probably didn't like slow down for you to like look at the animals. Like, I don't think they had a driver that was necessarily, giving you the tour.
Not like
it was. No, it was probably more like a recording.
Got it.
I don't know that for certain, but that's kind of my guess.
Okay.
Ride was about 15 to 20 minutes long and cost $1 for adults and 40 cents for children.
Could you imagine?
In today's money, that's $9.72 and $3.89.
That's so cheap.
That's honestly not bad, really.
That's still pretty cheap.
If somebody was to do something like this, like not in a park where it's included for admission, it would cost like $25 a person. Like,
if not more.
So, yeah.
Yeah, if not more than that.
So that's not bad. So. Skyway Safari departed the station and transported guests across the Wild Animal Kingdom, as it was called. They traveled past destinations like Gorilla Island, the Congo River, the Lion Moat, Goat Mountain, Lake Victoria, and the Rhino and Elephant displays. Yeah, Goat Mountain. That's interesting. Skyway Safari proved to be extremely popular. By 1968, the park bought an additional 2 trains to add to the ride to decrease the wait times. So that, just tells you there were a lot of people. In 1970, the name of the ride was changed to Monorail, which is not... I don't know why that was the decision, but the park also... That was also the same year that they decided to introduce admission to the park. So now, rather than being a free park and you paid per ride, now it was you pay for admission and all the rides are free. So there you go. In 1971, the park opened the Transvelt Railway. Nowadays, it's known as the Serengeti Express, which is a steam engine ride that takes you on a tour of the animal exhibits. So, again, kind of like...
There's a steam engine train in the one at Williamsburg. Does it do the same thing?
I don't know. That's actually a good question. So, because I'm more familiar with the animal exhibits at Busch Gardens Tampa because they're more prevalent. They actually have rides themed to animals and, things like that. So Busch Gardens Williamsburg, I'm not exactly sure. So in 1972, the ride's name was changed to Monorail Safari. It's better than just Monorail. Not as good as Skyway Safari, though, in my opinion. Monorail operates throughout the 70s and 80s. They upgraded the trains in 1988 and added air conditioning. Which was very popular in the hot Florida summers.
That would have been nice.
So, by the late 90s, the monorail was still the oldest remaining attraction at the park. And unfortunately, park officials wanted something new. And on May 14th, 1999, the monorail would permanently close for, quote, future plans that would require space that is currently taken up by the monorail. According to park officials, the ride was not removed due to wear and tear. They said it was actually in very good shape. But the newspaper article I read mentioned, this is kind of funny, kind of sad, mentioned an incident in April when a school bus ran into one of the support beams.
What
the monorail had like no damage, but the bus was totaled and a bunch of people got injured on the bus.
Oh my gosh.
I'm like, oh wow, that's very
awful.
sad. But it had nothing to do with damage to the ride or anything. They took the ride out of service for annual maintenance in early 1999, and the park officials just decided not to open it ever again. Like, can you imagine that?
Oh,
Like,
we've talked about this before, and it burns me
well,
up.
and it's like one thing to be like, it had issues, so we can never open it again. Kind of like the volcano at King's Dominion type of thing.
Yeah.
Where it was like, we tried, but it's just not going to happen. In this instance, it was like, they're working on it, and park officials were just like, you know what? I'm kind of tired of this ride. Why don't we just not open it? Like, there was nothing wrong with it. It was still popular. Not as popular as it used to be, but...
I hate that.
I
hate that. It really makes me mad.
This is an interesting decision. So, listen to the gall in this statement here from the newspaper. Quote, visitors, official said, will soon forget the monorail ever existed. Rides come and go. Unquote. Wow. That is so calloused.
It's very savage.
Just like, you won't even remember we had this monorail. Yes. You'll be fine. Wow.
So sad.
Okay, then.
Wow.
No sympathy whatsoever.
None.
So.
Took that sympathy and threw it out the door.
Screw your monorail. I want something else. Okay. Oh, dear. So the monorail goes away, which is sad. Because I think it's a really cool ride. Like,
it's a very cool
like,
ride.
Imagine if this was still going through the parking lot nowadays. Like,
see, I would love something like that.
I just think that's great. So,
yeah.
Now, obviously, there's a reason we're talking about the monorail, and so that means Cheetah Hunt wouldn't exist if the monorail was still there. But
screw Cheetah Hunt. Give me back the monorail.
Whoa, we just went from one extreme to the other.
Give me back the monorail.
So, let's talk about another ride now.
Okay.
While all this was happening, the park was working on a new ride that would take guests around the Serengeti to view the animals. So, because they had two, they had the monorail and the train. So now they're closing the monorail, but they wanted to open another one, so there were still two rides that would go out to the animal exhibits. So in May of 2000, Busch Gardens Tampa announced Rhino Rally, which was a safari-themed attraction utilizing Land Rovers and a river ride section to be constructed by Vekoma. Now, this is very similar to Kilimanjaro Safaris, which is crazy because it's only like an hour and a half away from Animal Kingdom. And Animal Kingdom had just opened 2 years prior to this. So it's kind of like, this is kind of weird that we're opening this very similar ride to what Disney World just opened 2 years ago.
I'm surprised Disney didn't say anything.
Well, there were a couple differences which I think made it different enough that Disney didn't have an issue with it. Also, Disney's is a lot bigger. Disney just has more money, so they were able to get more animals and more vehicles and more land. So, meanwhile, Busch Gardens Tampa is kind of, it's not downtown, but it is
landlocked.
It is landlocked. So there's only so much they can do with the space that they have.
So what kind of animals do they have?
I mean, they still have a decent amount. I didn't actually get to go on to the Serengeti Express or anything, so I couldn't tell you everything that they have. But I mean, it's not small. Like they have a good amount to, and it's not like the animals don't have room to walk. Like they're good. They're good exhibits that they've put together for the animals, But Animal Kingdom has way more room to work with is what I'm getting at. So, now a couple differences. The storylines are very different, where actually Kilimanjaro doesn't even have a storyline anymore. It used to have a poaching theme to it, but they've done away with that in recent years. Now, Rhino Rally had it was like a kind of like an off-road rally race type of theme, where you're like going through the Serengeti on like these kind of like a road rally type of deal. So that was kind of the theme behind that one. Now, this is kind of interesting. A random guest was picked for each vehicle to be the navigator and would get to sit up front next to the driver and assist in navigating the vehicle.
That's really cool.
Isn't that kind of interesting? I kind of like that. Now, it is kind of a funny thing because, like, at some points, really, the navigator's not really doing anything.
No.
But it's just kind of fun to pretend, right? Like, there's one portion of the ride where the driver has to turn left, and you get to that fork in the road, and the driver would ask the navigator which way to go. And even if the navigator said go right, the driver would be like, okay, just turn left instead. So it's kind of funny. Now, the most...
Sorry, I thought you said this way.
Oh, sorry, I misheard you. Now, towards the end of the ride, this is the most unique part of this ride. The driver would start to cross a bridge when suddenly the bridge collapses and the rover would begin to float downstream on the broken piece of bridge.
Wild.
And then
like that.
There's like a waterfall, and then it like gets wedged with some rocks right before it goes over the waterfall, and then the Land Rover is able to drive back off onto dry land and finish the ride.
Huh.
So that is pretty interesting. I like that a lot. It's very creative. Now, so the effect is achieved by having basically the driver would drive onto the bridge, and there was a little light on the dashboard that would tell the driver when they were in the right spot. And when that happened, there's a system that came up and locked onto the tires. And then this whole section of bridge was just attached to a track that was underneath the river. And so that bridge would just follow the track as, going down the river. And then, it would get to a certain spot and stop. The tires would unlock and the driver could, drive back onto dry ground. And there was 3 pieces of bridge on the track. There'd be one that was actually at the bridge waiting to load. There'd be one going down the river.
Sorry.
There'd be one going down the river, and then there'd be another one that kind of went through a backstage area that was out of view from guests to go back to the bridge to wait for another vehicle to load. So... kind of a fascinating little ride system that they've got here to kind of really cool. Achieve a very different effect.
Is that still there?
It is not, unfortunately. What? Well, the problem is the water portion of the ride had so many technical issues.
That's a bummer.
Which is very sad because it's a very cool idea, and I kind of wish someone else would try it again because I think it's a very, very interesting idea. There was only one ever constructed, and
that's
probably because it had so many issues, Vekoma was just like, okay, we're not trying that again.
Idea.
But
stink.
Yeah, so it was extremely popular too, but I mean, it just the ride had a lot of technical issues. So for example, the water section, like I said, had constant mechanical issues. Now, Vekoma did design the ride in a way that it could still operate if the water section was broken. That fork in the road that I was telling you about, if you made a left turn, you go to the water, the bridge going down the water, down the river section. If you turn right, it just takes you through a little backstage area that eventually comes back to the station and finishes the ride. So you could still keep the ride open. The problem with that is you're arguably missing the most exciting part of the ride now, and like guests would get on not knowing whether they were going to get that or not.
Right.
So that's kind of a bummer for guests to not know.
Reminds me of when you ride Navi River and you don't know if you're going to get the animation.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's the highlight of the ride, and you don't know if you're going to get that or not. Which, okay, I get that you want to keep the ride open, but man, I don't want to wait 90 minutes for Navi River not to see the animatronic. You know what I mean?
I agree.
So that's very similar to that. I agree. 1 month after opening, a driver flipped one of the vehicles while, quote, acting goofy, as one guest put it. Okay. And so they closed the ride for a while to widen the roads and redesign the ride vehicle so that wouldn't happen again.
Okay.
That's so dumb.
That is really silly.
Vekoma and the park would continue to work on the water section throughout the years, but finally gave up on it in 2010. So from, I think this opened in 2001 to 2010, you were able to maybe get a chance to ride it with the water section. From that point on, the ride remained open, but it would just, they basically cut out that water section, and you would just always turn to the right at that one fork in the road. So it basically just became a smaller, not as good version of Kilimanjaro Safaris at that point. So
that's really depressing.
Yeah. Now, meanwhile, park officials were working on a new roller coaster for Busch Gardens Tampa. At the time, the park had 7 roller coasters, so they had the Schwarzkopf Looper from 1980, Scorpion, which is the one we mentioned earlier, just closed a few weeks ago. Had the B&M trio of Kumba, Montu, and Shikra. All 3 of those still open. They had Gwazi, which is now an RMC, Iron Gwazi, but at the time it was a fairly old wooden coaster by GCI. Really actually wasn't that old, but it was just, it had not aged well. It was very rough. And I think even at this point, it was a dueling coaster, and I think at this point there was only one side that was open.
Oh.
So...
defeats the purpose of a dueling coaster.
This is exactly why they...
Duel.
That's
Duo.
This is...
Two.
This is exactly...
Dos. Two.
You done? It's exactly why they converted it to, Iron Gwazi, because this just wasn't operating the way it was supposed to. So, and then they had a wild mouse called Cheetah Chase, and then they just opened a small family coaster in the Sesame Street section called Air Grover. Air Grover. So...
One that you forgot was there.
No, I knew about Air Grover. I forgot about the one at Busch Gardens Williamsburg.
Oh, you're right.
Which
I'll give
I think
you
that one's
benefit of the doubt.
I think it was Grover's Alpine Express or something like that.
No, there's a ride called Prince Elmo something. I'm like, Prince Elmo? When did Elmo become a prince?
Wow.
News to me, man.
That's impressive.
Go Elmo.
Go Elmo. So this new coaster that they're working on, it had actually been in development for nearly 6 years at this point.
Wow.
And the closure of Rhino Rally's water section gave park officials the last push they needed to make the coaster happen. So construction walls began to go up in April of 2010, which is right around the time that Rhino Rally closed that section of the ride. Portion of the Serengeti Express's track was repositioned to make way for the new coaster. Park began to post teasers on social media in the following months, showing pictures of coaster track, and then split-second POV videos where it was just you just see little bits and pieces of it, and lots of other teasers that we won't get into. But on October 13th, 2010, Busch Gardens Tampa officially announced Cheetah Hunt, a multi-launch blitz coaster manufactured by Intamin. Here's a few facts about the early development of Cheetah Hunt. It was designed by Mark Rose, which was the VP of Design and Engineering at Busch Gardens Tampa at the time. The coaster was inspired by the scene in Star Wars Return of the Jedi, where Luke and Leia are navigating through the forests of Endor on speeder bikes. Definitely not what I was expecting to hear as the inspiration for the coaster when I started the research for this episode.
I mean, it's good inspiration. But...
Yeah, I understand where he's coming from, the weaving in and out of trees, just because I know the layout from writing it. But I'm like, man, Star Wars to Cheetah Hunt, that is...
Well, here's my thing with that, is cheetahs don't weave in and out of trees.
No, they don't.
They are cheetahs. They run straight in one path, and that's they only last a few seconds before all their energy's burnt out.
It's true. Most people don't know that though, so
that's depressing. Cheetahs are cool.
They are cool. The attraction was also, well, you'll like this then. The attraction was partially inspired by Manta at SeaWorld Orlando, which that coaster has a manta ray exhibit in the queue, really we talked about. Now, while not in the queue, Cheetah Hunt does have a cheetah exhibit that they opened alongside the coaster. So basically the coaster's here, and then they have a separate cheetah exhibit that's right next to it. So
the animals think of the coasters.
I think after a while, it's probably just second nature to them. They probably really don't think about it.
So weird.
Yeah.
Hey Bob, where do you live? Next to a coaster.
You're insinuating they talk to cheetahs that aren't at Busch Gardens Tampa.
You never know. They could be post.
They keep calling other cheetahs on the phone.
They could be pen pals.
I'm not sure how that works, but I like imagining that that's what happens, so I'm okay with it.
Okay.
B&M was an early contender to manufacture the attraction. The park had worked with them 3 times before, so they had a good relationship with B&M. But Intamin was ultimately chosen because their technological capabilities more closely matched what they envisioned for the attraction. Rather than a tight, compact layout like some coasters, Cheetah Hunt is kind of a long, sprawling layout across the grassland. It just kind of goes off into the Serengeti area and then comes back. It's kind of...
Goes off into the sunset.
It really does. I mean, it's... The ride's 4,429 feet, traverse across... the area that the coaster takes up is 13 acres.
Wow.
Yeah, so it just really goes, like, off into the sunset and then, eventually makes its way back. So... now, here's what I talked about earlier. The ride was originally going to be called Cheetah.
What the? Cheetah.
Well, I thought that was a great name. Apparently,
I don't like that
you don't
one.
like that? Why not? What's wrong with that?
Sounds like Taki. Like a snack.
I don't get that at all. That's funny. Cheetah.
I don't like it.
I don't know.
No.
Do you prefer Cheetah Hunt or
I don't
Cheetah?
prefer either.
What would you name it?
I don't know. Cheetah? The Cheetah?
The Cheetah. The park trademarked Cheetah early in 2010.
Make it a really long name and go with the Cheetah, Fast and Furious, or faster than the cheetahs. I don't know, something cheetah. Growl.
I think that's the winner there. Yep. The park changed direction prior to the coaster's announcement, and enthusiasts actually discovered this, and there's actually like petitions going around to have the park change it back to Cheetah. But the park was unwilling to revert back because like they'd already started. You've already
all the signs and
the signs
yeah.
and like merchandise and blah 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 blah. Right. So at that point, they're not going to change it back. So now, why did we talk about the monorail and Rhino Rally? Well, the old monorail station would be converted into the new station for Cheetah Hunt. So that's where those two tie together. The monorail station sat empty for like a decade. Now, I do think there's another ride that uses that building as the station. I think it's the Sky Ride. They have like a chairlift that kind of goes from one side of the park to the other. I think that's on the other side of the building. So I think there's like two stations in one building.
Yeah.
So only half the building sat vacant for 10 years, but still very strange. And then finally Cheetah Hunt came in and now uses the side of the station that used to be housed by the monorail. And part of Cheetah Hunt's layout actually goes through the old river section of Rhino Rally. So, where the bridge kind of floated down the river, it kind of went through this S-bend curve.
Right.
And now the roller coaster kind of comes through a launch and then dives through that section, weaving back and forth. So we'll talk about the layout in a second here, but that's where those two kind of come into the history of the ride because Cheetah Hunt kind of replaced both of those rides, so to speak. The park's Wild Mouse Cheetah Chase was renamed because they didn't want to have Cheetah Hunt and Cheetah Chase in the same park.
Why not?
It'd be a little complicated.
Why not?
I don't know. What do you think?
It's not. Not complicated at all. Get it right.
Wow.
Yep.
Right. There you go. Haley's just calling out people tonight.
I'm getting punchy, guys. It is happening. It is almost midnight. It's a good time.
I feel like we're always saying how tired we are when we record these.
The past couple episodes we've been pretty good. GP says we're doing pretty good.
This episode was just the exception. So
yes.
So Cheetah Chase was renamed to Sand Serpent to avoid confusion.
I don't like that.
You don't like anything right now.
Sand Serpent. Okay, continue.
Apparently I can't take you to Busch Gardens Tampa. You don't like anything so far. Why'd they take out the monorail? No, I don't like that name. I don't like that name either.
Wow. Take me to Disney.
Wow. It's okay, Busch Gardens Tampa. I love you. My wife's a member of the GP. Don't listen to her.
GP.
By March 14th, 2011, track work for Cheetah Hunt was complete, and the park began testing the month after that. And then Cheetah Hunt would open to the public on May 27th, 2011, and continues to operate to this day. The ride experience is as follows. The ride begins with a 30-mile-per-hour LSM launch out of the station and around a wide left turn, followed by a gradual dip before approaching the second launch. The second launch accelerates riders to their top speed of 60 miles per hour before climbing a 102-foot wind catcher tower, a unique element which is essentially a slow figure 8 on top of a decorative tower. Actually, I have a picture of the wind catcher tower here, because...
Give me that picture.
Yeah.
I commented on this when we pulled into the park.
It's very...
that's cool.
Yeah, it's a very, very picturesque element.
It's
so
different.
So there's only 2 coasters in the world that have this element, so kind of a unique one. After maneuvering through the slow banked curves, riders drop 130 feet into a trench and then proceed over a direction-changing airtime hill, crossing over the sky ride before completing the ride's only inversion, a Heartline roll. Upon exiting the roll and its subsequent brake run, the train takes a bank turn to the right back to ground level. The train traverses through several high-speed turns, going through the old Rhino Rally water canyon. This leads the ride into its third and final launch, which accelerates riders to a speed of 40 miles per hour, which is immediately followed by a small camelback hill. The ride swerves left and right a couple more times before going up one final hill and into the final brakes. Now, the reviews for Cheetah Hunt were mostly positive. Many enthusiasts made the comparison that Cheetah Hunt was essentially a tamer version of Maverick at Cedar Point, which we talked about earlier. Right. Makes sense because they're the same model. Cheetah Hunt is just 10 miles per hour slower, has one less inversion. So Maverick is 70 miles per hour. This is 60. Maverick has 2 inversions. This has 1.
Why do they call it Cheetah Hunt if cheetahs are the fastest mammals in the world? But this one's not the fastest.
They would have had to go really fast to make this the fastest coaster in the world.
Not the coaster, the fastest launch.
Just the fastest Intamin Blitz coaster.
Thank you, yeah.
Well, it's an interesting thing because, let's talk about it now. Many enthusiasts found it kind of odd that the coaster only has 1 inversion. Like in the 70s and 80s, it was fairly common to find coasters with 1 inversion. Basically, 1 vertical loop. Think like Super Duper Looper. Loop looped. Like Fruit Loops. Like Super Duper Looper only has, the 1 loop at the beginning.
The looped.
Yes. But as coasters became more complex, it kind of became common to either have no inversions or several inversions. Just kind of, make up your mind.
Yeah.
In the last 25 years, there's only been 8 coasters built in the U.S. that only have 1 inversion, not including shuttle coasters, because that's kind of... They have 1 inversion, but they go through it multiple times, so that doesn't really count. So notably, Incredicoaster, which only has 1 single vertical loop, but it was kind of designed to be that way. That's like the focal point of the ride. Mm-hmm. Shikra, which was the first dive coaster. Iron Rattler was the first RMC hybrid with an inversion. Wicked only has 1 inversion, but also has a vertical launch and a vertical drop. Hades 360 and Mindblowers only have 1 and Mindblower only have 1 inversion, but they're both wooden coasters. And then Pipeline is the first surf coaster. So all of these are kind of different from Cheetah Hunt in the sense that they're like prototype models, where Cheetah Hunt was, it's not a prototype. Obviously, Maverick was built the same model 4 years prior to this. So the 1 inversion showcases a sticking point that some enthusiasts have with Cheetah Hunt. Is it a family coaster or is it a thrill coaster?
Thrill.
Which is like when we were reading the customer reviews, that's like the one person that's like, I took my
put my kid on this.
Exactly, but it's like, so the problem
was
is
absolutely ready. I would not put my kid on this as a first roller coaster ride.
Exactly.
I wouldn't.
Exactly. So many enthusiasts would agree that it kind of falls into this weird middle ground, which I agree with. It's a tale of 2 stories essentially. The first half of the ride features a 60 mile per hour launch, 130 foot drop, and an inversion. To me, that sounds like thrill coaster, right?
Yeah, that's not.
That's
I would put a family on.
That's like that's basically powder keg levels, right?
Right.
But the second half of the ride, basically from the third launch and kind of a little bit before that, has a top speed of 40 miles per hour and is just banked turns. No big drops, no inversions. It's kind of a lot more like a Big Bear Mountain or something in that realm. Which
I've not been on Big Bear.
Big Bear Mountain goes 48 miles per hour. So, you know, it's just interesting that, like, the ride, like, starts off, like, really intense, and then the second half of the ride is just kind of, like, I don't know, it just kind of meanders throughout the rest of the layout, which is how I felt when I was riding it. I loved the first half of the ride, and the second half, I'm like, this is just kind of slow compared to the rest of the ride. So,
boring.
Yeah, well, it's not boring. Some enthusiasts say boring. We've
already had this conversation.
Some enthusiasts would say this is boring. Here's a quote from Sean Daly from the Tampa Bay Times that put it in a good way, but also is hilarious the way he puts this.
Okay.
Quote, Cheetah Hunt is a fuzzy whittle kitten compared to Shikra and Montu. Whittle kitten.
Whittle.
W-I-T-T-L-E. Fuzzy whittle kitten.
Whittle kitten.
Just when the ride is on the verge of sweet terror, it opts for friendly instead of ferocious. Despite having 3 head-snapping launches, the ride gets curiously slow at times.
Now this is going to be stuck in my head.
Fuzzy whittle kitten's going to be stuck in your head?
Soft kitty, warm kitty.
I have no idea what you're singing right now.
You've never heard that song?
I have no idea what
Okay,
you're
shout out if you've heard that song. It goes like, soft kitty, warm kitty, something.
You don't even know.
I don't remember, but it's like, purr. I don't remember, but it like, little ball of fur. That's what it does. Yeah. Something. I'll have to. I think my cousin knows it.
That's funny.
Yeah, it's a song. It actually is a song.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I haven't heard it. So.
Ball of fur.
So yeah, Cheetah Hunt kind of falls in this weird middle ground where it's like too intense to be a family coaster, but it's definitely not. And like RCTP classifies it as an extreme coaster, and I'm like, this is no way. This is no way. It's extreme. So,
have you been on an extreme coaster?
Despite the somewhat confusing thrill level of the ride, enthusiasts still find it to be a fun ride.
Oops, sorry.
And it would come in second place for Best New Coaster of 2011 at the Golden Ticket Awards, losing out to New Texas Giant at Six Flags Over Texas, which was the first RMC hybrid. So how are you going to compete with that?
Yeah, you can't.
I think New Texas Giant had like 45% of the vote. Cheetah Hunt had like 13% or something like that. So
it
kind of ran away with the award that year. Now, the summer of 2012, Busch Gardens Williamsburg would open a multi-launch coaster of their own, which we talked about earlier, actually, is Verbolten. Now, instead of going with Intamin, they made the decision to go with Zero, which is like a very...
Never even heard of that.
I don't think we've ever talked about Zero before. I don't know if there was tension following Cheetah Hunt's opening, but Busch Gardens Williamsburg has worked with Intamin twice since then, so it seems like their relationship is fine, so I'm not exactly sure why they didn't just build Cheetah Hunt 2.0 at Busch Gardens Williamsburg. I'm not sure what. Zero must have had something that won Busch Gardens Williamsburg over to build their family launch coaster as, with them instead of with Intamin. So 3 years after Cheetah Hunt opened in 2014, Rhino Rally would close down for good, so it's not even there anymore. Where the station was, I think, was replaced in 2023 by Serengeti Flyer, which is the largest SNS Scream and Swing in the world until Hershey Park opens theirs next year. So, another interesting decision by Busch Gardens Tampa that enthusiasts are kind of not 50-50 on. Enthusiasts don't like this. When Intamin's coasters in the early 2000s, when they had over-the-shoulder restraints, their restraints were like hard plastic ones. So they were like
hard plastic.
It's hard to tell if they're like plastic or if it's like a rubber. It might be more rubber, but it's like Storm Runner, those restraints, but instead of like the fabric, it was like a rubber thing is what they used to have, rubber, plastic, whatever it is. Almost all of these have since been replaced with the softer fabric restraints like they have on Stormrunner now. And Intimidator 305 has the new restraints. Maverick has the new restraints. A lot of those Intamins that have the older over-the-shoulder restraints now have the fabric ones, which still aren't my favorite restraints, but they're better, definitely. Cheetah Hunt still has not moved over to the new restraints. And
that's weird.
Yeah, they're not super comfortable. And Cheetah Hunt has also gotten...
Remember that guy said his muscles hurt?
Yeah, you got too big of muscles and it's going to be a problem. So the ride is definitely...
On those loops. Still, I think that's by far my favorite review. Loop.
That was pretty funny. The ride has gotten bumpier over the years too, as Intamins tend to do.
As any coaster goes.
Well, yeah, but Intamins in particular have become notorious for developing a rattle as they get older. And then you mix that with the restraints that aren't super comfortable. Cheetah Hunt has fallen 19 spots in the Coaster Bot rankings over the past 2 years.
Wow.
Which is pretty significant. So, that means, I think it was at 68 in 2022. And, now I think we said at the top of the episode, it's 87 now. So, I mean, it could fall out of the top 100 in the next year or two, which is pretty crazy considering Maverick is at 7. You know what I mean? There's just a huge letdown. It's a huge difference between Cheetah Hunt and Maverick when they're both the same model, which is very strange. So, now, that's not to say that Cheetah Hunt is a bad coaster. I still enjoyed it a lot, and a lot of enthusiasts still enjoy it. It's not a coaster that enthusiasts are like, man, I hate Cheetah Hunt. It's just what could have been,
Right.
Could we have gotten Maverick 2.0 instead of, Maverick Junior is essentially what we got.
Maverick Junior?
That's one way to put it. Baby Maverick.
Aww, he's so cute.
But it is still a very good coaster. It's really popular too. Like I said, it has one of the longest lines in the park. So it's very much a coaster that the GP loves to death. And then
is it something that I would love to death?
Yeah, I mean, I think you would enjoy it. So it's not to me, Cheetah Hunt was a good ride. I don't get off Cheetah Hunt and be like, man, that was one of the, top 3 coasters in the park or whatever. I think I would have to go back and check, but I said it ranked 5th among the coasters in the Coaster Bot rankings at the park.
Yeah.
That's probably roughly where I would put it too. The other stuff at the park is much smoother, much more intense. This kind of falls in this middle ground where it's bumpy, but also has a kind of, it's kind of slow at certain points. It's just, I don't know. It's an interesting coaster. We'll put it at that. But still a good ride, and a lot of people really enjoy it, especially families with kids that are it's a good introductory coaster too. If you have kids that are starting to move past Air Grover and this is a good introduction to thrill roller coasters.
See,
so
I don't
it's past.
I would ever put my kid on a launch coaster for their first big coaster.
Yeah, the only benefit to Cheetah Hunt is all of the launches are rolling launches instead of standstill launches, so they're not quite as intense as a powder keg or a rock and roller coaster or something like that. But yeah, so. And that is the history of Cheetah Hunt at Busch Gardens Tampa. Growl, as Haley wants to name it. So, Growl the ride.
That's stupid.
What do you think's better, Growl the ride or Burnt Toast the ride?
Burnt Toast. That one doesn't make any sense.
Do you remember that though? You remember that from way back in episode 7?
You're so weird.
But
I love you. I don't. Same. It's just,
I'd have to go back to it. I don't know if that may have been your idea. That may have been you that came up with Burnt Toast the ride. I'd have to go back and listen to it
because I get really punchy during these things. But that
was back when we were still recording in our kitchen.
Oh yeah. Such
bad quality, but good content.
There you go.
Oh man.
You get what you get, and you're gonna like it.
Whoa, okay. You're gonna listen to these episodes, and you're gonna like it.
So help me.
Oh, man. Well, thank you for tuning into this episode of Airtime Traveler and our very first episode of Busch Gardens month here on the show. Like we said at the top, we got a trip report coming next week, and then Busch Gardens Williamsburg episode and trip report the 2 weeks after that as well. So, and you better listen to it or else. No. So, if you like that episode, be sure to leave us a 5-star review on whatever platform you may be listening on. It's not for our egos or to make us feel better about ourselves. It just helps people find the podcast in the future. No, it's not. It just helps with search engine optimization.
Helps with my ego.
Like you look at the reviews. Once we're done recording, Haley doesn't think about the podcast again until we record again.
That's not true. It's not true. Words, twisting them. That's just plain rude.
Oh. Well, anything else from the GP for our episode today?
Nope.
I think that's it. So, yeah, wish us luck, and excited for Busch Gardens Williamsburg. Yeah. So I'll be sure to be... Actually, if you're listening to this the day it comes out, we will be going to Busch Gardens Williamsburg tonight and tomorrow. So Be sure to check our socials on X and on Instagram, and you can see our thoughts live, and obviously we'll have a trip report a couple weeks after that too. So with that being said, thank you for tuning in to this episode, and we will see you in the next one.